Today we're doing something a little different on this channel. I'm not treating this video like a top 5 list, more of a video essay of sorts on Bob Lazar. If you don't know who this guy is, don't worry, I'm gonna get into it. He's a controversial guy who's made a lot of spectacular claims. There's a lot to get into, so let's just dive right in. I'm your host James, and I'm here to discuss the question, is Bob Lazar lying about alien technology and element 115? All right, we're gonna start this little video essay off by talking about Bob Lazar himself. Who is he? What's his history? What's his deal? To some, he's just a conspiracy theorist. To others, he's a highly learned physicist and genuine whistleblower who shared top secret information regarding secretive government operations in Area 51. He got a lot of attention in the late 80s for his claims of having worked on reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology at a secretive government facility near Area 51. Born on January 26, 1959, Lazar's background and education are controversial. It's hard to find genuine documented evidence of his education history. There are discrepancies and unverified credentials with what he's claimed versus what's actually documented and out there. Some argue that a lot of his paperwork was wiped by the government to try and discredit him after going public. Lazar stated that he earned degrees in electronics and physics from the California Institute of Technology and MIT, but there's again a lack of concrete evidence to support these educational claims. Now, we'll get into some of his claims about UFOs and aliens. I'll be going over these more in detail, but just in general, Lazar alleged that he worked at a classified facility called S4, located near Area 51 in Nevada. All kinds of stuff went on there. It supposedly housed aliens, there were alien autopsies, but according to his claims, he was involved in research related specifically to alien spacecraft, which he described as a flying saucer powered by element 115, a substance he claimed could produce anti-gravity effects. In '89, Lazar came out with his story, discussing his experiences, revealing details about his alleged work at S4 and the technology he claimed to have encountered. He's probably best well known for his appearance on Joe Rogan and the documentary Bob Lazar, Area 51, and flying saucers. His claims have of course been met with skepticism from the scientific community and experts in various fields. Many have pointed out inconsistencies in his story, including the lack of corroborating evidence and the unverified nature of his academic background, but some believe his accounts are genuine, that there's this big government cover-up going on. Others just think he's either out of his mind or a hoaxer, and that's what we're here to explore with you today. So I mentioned element 115, let's break that down a bit. Now Lazar claimed that element 115 was the fuel source for the alien spacecraft he was studying. According to him, this element could be used to produce anti-gravity effects, allowing the UFOs to travel vast distances in a way that defies known physics. Now, there is an element 115, but according to scientists, it's much different than what Bob Lazar reported. In the conventional periodic table, element 115 is a synthetic element with the atomic number 115. It was first synthesized in 2003 by Russian and American scientists at the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research in Russia and at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California. The element is highly unstable and has a very short half-life, making it challenging to study it. But Bob Lazar claimed that he had allegedly encountered element 115 years before it was ever discovered. According to his accounts, element 15 served as the fuel for an advanced alien propulsion system. Lazar stated that this element, when bombarded with protons, would generate a gravitational field, allowing the spacecraft to achieve propulsion by bending space-time around it. If this technology is a thing, it would revolutionize space travel as we know it. We could perform faster than light travel and actually start traveling through space. So were his claims genuine and the technology he was working on has just been covered up, or was he just spinning tales? I'll expand with my final thoughts later at the end, but it's hard to say. Next, let's go over S4. Bob Lazar claims that S4 is a secretive government facility near Area 51, a top secret research base where he was hired to work on reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. He was hired due to his expertise in propulsion systems and his background in physics. Lazar alleged that S4, he worked on alien spacecraft recovered by the US government. According to him, the facility housed several flying saucers of extraterrestrial origin. These crafts were powered by that element 115 we just discussed. One specific alien spacecraft Lazar described was nicknamed the Sport Model. He claimed to have studied the vehicle extensively, focusing on understanding its propulsion system and attempting to reverse engineer its technology for human use. He also detailed all the strict security measures at S4. It was protected by armed guards, there were biometric scanners, and there were extensive background checks for everyone who worked there, which is not surprising. There's heavy security in any government or military facility, so a top secret one housing aliens, this is to be expected. Lazar went public with his claims in the late 80s, revealing his alleged experiences at S4 to investigative journalist George Knapp. This story got a lot of attention, and there were tons of public debates, whether conspiracy theories surrounding government involvement. And there were tons of debates with conspiracy theories surrounding government involvement with extraterrestrial technology. An interesting side note about the whole S4 thing is that there was an archaeologist named Jerry Freeman who kind of snuck his way into Area 51 in 1997, or at least the restricted area surrounding it. He wasn't looking for aliens, mind you. He was actually on a truck to retrace the steps of the famous Lost 49ers. He wrote all these journal entries on his experience avoiding authorities, camping out at night, and trekking throughout the day with limited water and supplies. He didn't mention alien stuff much, but on one day he'd climbed a ridge above NYE Canyon looking down on Papoose Dry Lake, which is just south of Area 51. And that night he saw some lights. One looked like it was coming from a security vehicle, and one was kind of stationary but seemed to grow and shrink in size. It looked kind of like a hangar door opening and closing. So could this have been the S4 facility? Even if it wasn't, it was still a military facility of some kind within Area 51. Who knows what it's used for. And finally, let's touch on the alleged government threats Bob Lazar faced when he started going public with all of this information. I mean, that's the big question that comes to a lot of people's minds whenever big conspiracies like this are revealed, right? If this stuff is so top secret, then how has he gotten away with talking about it? Well, after Bob Lazar went public with his claims, he stated that he faced government threats and harassment. According to Lazar, after disclosing his experiences, he was subjected to intimidation tactics intended to silence him. He also reported incidents of phone tapping and surveillance with mysterious unmarked cars that would follow him around. He also claimed that he received anonymous threatening phone calls warning him to stop discussing his work at the secret facility. He also stated that his house was raided by government agents who confiscated various documents and materials related to his work on extraterrestrial technology. He maintained that these actions were aimed at discrediting him and preventing him from sharing more information about his experience. And that spotty educational history too that I mentioned. Lazar claims his records were tampered with by government officials also to discredit him. The only thing the government hasn't done is actually force him to shut up, which a lot of people point at as the #1 sign that everything he's talking about is just total nonsense. The government must just not care about what he's talking about at all. In fact, it could be a great distraction from other nefarious practices going on that they actually want to keep secret. And this is very plausible. It's also very plausible, though, that the government figures, you know what, who cares if he's talking? Most folks probably won't believe him And the ones that do have no way of proving the claims to the public, so may as well let this top secret info hide in plain sight in a way, right? The whole subject is just a total rabbit hole. It never ends. And for the sake of preserving my own sanity, I'm just gonna close things out with my final thoughts here. So just summing up my thoughts on Bob Lazar and alien life in general. In the case of Bob Lazar, it's difficult to come to any solid conclusion because his claims are kinda unfalsifiable to the general public. Only those who actually work in Area 51 know the absolute truth. To us on the outside though, it's like, yeah, maybe he's lying, but how can you really definitively prove that he is? Sure, there's the discrepancies with his educational background, but according to him, again, that stuff was tampered with in an attempt to discredit him to the public, which would make sense. If I was a government official who wanted to deal with a whistleblower, discrediting them and making them look foolish and untrustworthy would probably be a much better option than making them disappear, for example, which would only raise more questions and make people more suspicious. But then again, maybe he really is just lying about his education. As for the alien claims, it's hearsay. Maybe he saw something, maybe he didn't. We can't see it with our own eyes, so until we actually know what goes on in Area 51, as if we ever will, the possibility of there being aliens is just that, a possibility. But what about the likelihood of aliens in regards to Area 51, or just the presence of alien life in general? Well, it's become very cliched to say this, but it is very likely that there is some form of alien life out there. Space is far too vast for there not to be, so let's just get that part out of the way first. The question is really whether aliens have interacted with us here on Earth yet or not. All I can say here is that I've never seen anything myself. I've heard stories. Lots of stories of people's first-hand accounts. I've even heard a couple stories from people I know directly, like personally, who said they've seen some suspicious things hovering in the sky that they couldn't explain at the time. I'm not sure where I stand on it myself, but I can say it's not that far-fetched to me. The idea that there could be aliens and their technology, being studied in a government facility in the middle of Nevada is far more believable to me than any ghost story I hear. But what do you all make of this stuff? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.